of the Wrestling Underground podcast. I am your host, as always, Chad Porto, and joining me is the glorious one himself, Marcus Green. Marcus, we got a show.
Yeah, man, a lot of communication threw us off last night, but it might have been for the best.
Yeah. So, briefly, we try to record on Mondays now because it frees up our week. But Skype was not notifying Marcus I was attempting to call him, and Skype was telling me that he was away because it had that little yellow thing. So I was like, all right. And sometimes Marcus and I like to take I don't want to say inappropriate, but ill-advised naps at certain points in time in our day that don't make canonical sense. It is something we both do and did not realize we did until years into our friendship. So I just thought, hey, Marcus took a nap. Not a big deal. I got a jog I got to get in anyway. So, it worked out. But the wrestling gods like, you two homies are such good dudes. We're going to give you something else to talk about. And I'm like, oh, wrestling gods. What are you going to give us? And then I see Big E cashed in. I'm like, oh, thank you. We wouldn't have done that on the show. And then the wrestling gods are like, listen, this is a 2-for-1 day. You also get the NXT title conversation. That doesn't make any goddamn sense. And I'm just like, for us? I'm flattered. So we got a show. Got a big old show. Marcus, let's start with the good-ish. And that's the biggie. And it's ish because we'll talk about why here in a second. But Marcus, I'm throwing it to you. One, because you've been a big Big E champion for a long time. And two, because I got to finish this tweet. So Marcus, Big E winning the belt, initial reaction.
Initially, as I sat and watched the whole thing, I didn't think they were going to do it, and then because we always know with the whole cash-in thing, if the bell doesn't ring, it's not official. Mm-hmm. Nothing's right. So when the bell rang, I was like, oh, they might actually do this. Obviously it came off, they promoted on Twitter, then he was all over the show. And before that, set it up on SmackDown. So you never know. And with things changing, things so creatively, just say it up in the air would be an improvement, but just so creatively distraught right now, you never know. But then when the bell rang, I'm like, they might actually do this, and then because Lashley went down with a bad leg, I was like, okay, they finna basically do what they did with Patron when Ziggler cashed in, except this was nowhere near as well executed. But Big E got the win. And it was cool to see, but I felt bad while watching it because for some reason I just couldn't enjoy it because, a great moment with poor execution ultimately makes for a poor moment.
You're not wrong. Part of the issue, and we've talked about this before, but, we never know who's new to the show, so we'll run it through again. I have a severe disdain for the Money in the Bank idea. Part of the reason is it's a subconscious thing for wrestling fans to associate a wrestler who can win clean as someone who can be booked well. If you can win clean, we're going to be naturally gravitated to you. It's why so many wrestling fans will be upset with just an endless parade of douchery with booking. We appreciate clean finishes because it establishes guys correctly. And by the concept, Money in the Bank does not produce stars because every time someone cashes in, sure, you get the pop, but that's because most of the times you cash in, you're cashing in on marked crowds, which I don't say derogatorily, but it's more of an indie wrestling, hardcore fan base crowd that you do it with. Night after WrestleMania, they time these specifically for a reason. But with any cash-in, no matter who it is, no matter how it has gone, every time the person wins, they have a lackluster championship reign. And I mean every damn time. Edge lasted 3 weeks. Rob Van Dam lasted 5 because he got busted for driving while high. That dumbass. Edge, technically Mr. Anderson, got hurt, had it stripped. Then Edge won it, cashed in. Then he got hurt. Bryan Danielson's first run with the cashed in World Heavyweight title was abysmal. He spent it feuding with the Big Show and Kane. No one remembers that feud, and then he got kicked in the face by Sheamus and lost in 3 seconds. The Money in the Bank briefcase does not build stars. It does not make stars. It does not turn people into draws. Like Seth Rollins is a mid-carder. He hasn't popped a rating in his entire career. Big E's about to, maybe, possibly. So, looking at Big E, it's another wasted first-run opportunity. And the first run for title shots, right, for world champions are so imperative. I don't think people realize that like, the first title run of someone's career legitimizes them or ruins them. There's an old saying, Marcus, when it comes to touring and music. Like when you're a musical act and you go on tour, there's an old saying that you can't be a headliner twice if your first time fails. If you aren't ready to be a headliner and your tour tanks, you will never be a headliner ever again. And that's the truth about wrestling. When you see so many of these guys just, bail out with these world title runs in WWE after these Money in the Bank briefcases, they always end up just kind of, meandering around that upper middle card in the peripheral of wrestling, though. They get replaced by Hall of Famers, older wrestlers, and everyone is like, well, why does this keep happening? Simple. Because you don't book them, promote them, and develop them properly in the eyes of the fans. So why would anyone get that? Shawn Michaels' first world title run was in a 60-minute Iron Man match. Stone Cold's first world title run was beating Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania, Mr. WrestleMania. The Rock, it seems to be like the rare exception, him and The Undertaker, because both their first world title runs were absolute dog shit. But The Undertaker was never a world title guy. His best run with the belt was probably in 2002 when he was out of shape and bored. The Rock's never had a good world title run. Not one. His best, I think, was in 2000, and it was like for 4 months. So looking at all this, you have to have a good first title run. You have to have a big first win. It's how you build and promote and develop stars. Now, it's not a guarantee. You look at Brock Lesnar. He beats The Rock at SummerSlam. Youngest world champion ever. He becomes a fucking megastar. Transcends 3 different sports. Randy Orton follows up, perpetual mid-carder. I don't care how many times you put him in the main event. No one cared. No one tuned in. No one popped a rating who wasn't already watching. So, it doesn't always work, but it's the best path forward, and I feel like with Big E, they screwed that up.
Yeah, it was so simple, man, because he had a hell of a year.
Mm-hmm.
He,
Except for that Apollo Crews feud. Yeah.
Apollo! Yeah, I had to show you that promo exchange because him with that accent is just too funny, and then Big E was just over exaggerating his words unnecessarily. Just bad. But yeah, he had a hell of a year. Won the IC title, won the Royal Rumble, something else he did, then obviously Money in the Bank. They really been, putting the gas behind him, specifically since they broke up, tore him away from Kingston and Woods. And it was so simple because obviously Money in the Bank gives him access to the option of both champions, and with the natural inkling of them never pointing a stake in to say that like they had a negative breakup with the New Day, which I think that goes to show you just how successful that faction was, that they didn't want to do what they do with every other faction. Which is had them do this crappy breakup like they've done with the Shield and every other seeming faction that they've done. So with Lashley, it's seemingly dog walking both Kingston and Xavier Woods weeks on top of weeks on top of weeks. You would think it would be a no-brainer for him to go after the dude that's been basically killing his friends on TV every week. But that's not even how they built it up. He got the Lashley, but that wasn't even the intent of it. So it's, like I said, between that and the whole, oh my God, my ankle. Oh my God, oh God. Oh, if I could just get back in the ring.
If I had just one good ankle, then I'd be rich. That was a reference to the Bare Naked Ladies. Ever hear that
Yeah.
song? If I had $1,000,000. I think it's sad that that band was so successful and still didn't have $1,000,000.
Sometimes that wishful thinking just ultimately ends up to be thinking. I said I definitely wouldn't put in, though. And coming off of that, like, look, I know how important it is to see somebody like Big E with the title. How important it is for Woods. We know the history, the lineage, the lack of diversity when it's come to champions, the treatment of black people through the lineage under that old white man in that company. And I know what that moment meant to a lot of fans, and certainly what it probably meant to the three of those guys in New Day. But ultimately, the company has always been good with creating moments that ultimately go nowhere. I think for a lot of the fans, they mistake like motion for momentum a lot of time.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's real. I couldn't have said that better myself. Motion for momentum. I like that.
yeah,
They like going for the cheap emotional pop. The company should rename themselves after Mick Foley, because that's all they do. They give you the cheap pop. They don't give you the earned pop. There's a reason why we still look at the Dean Malenko as Cyclope moment as a stalwart moment in pro wrestling. It's because it was built up over 3 months. They built up to that moment to be earned. That's why that's why even though Christian's now the champion of Impact and everyone loves Christian, so it's like, how could you be mad at that? That's why we're mad at it, because we thought that this was building up to something vastly different, and instead we
yeah.
get this throwaway, and now Christian's going to face off for the Impact title separately. Like, what?
Yeah, it's it's a unique thing. I think, like I said, it's easy to get whipped up in a moment, and of course, somebody like Big E, who was as talented as he is, underserved in that company, like most talents are, and of course he deserves it, and it's great to see. But ultimately, like you got to ask people, like, where does it go? And I think a lot of people just want you to kind of shut up and take it in, but the times are too pivotal right now when you got AEW doing what they're doing, and other companies, like MLW, Ring of Honor, New Japan, they're doing more collaborations because the big kahuna just isn't what it was anymore. Even if they are making profits hand over fist, creatively they're bankrupt. And even with a roster as talented as they are, I mean, they draining them creatively. Um, so it's just a weird thing. Like, even though, like, naming somebody, like, I mean, obviously we wouldn't want to see him so much as do a freaking cereal commercial now. But one of my favorite, talk about being built up properly, like title wins in world championship wins in TNA was when they gave it to Aries when he beat Rude, because they
Mm-hmm.
properly built that up. Like, he won that X Division title and he tore through that division with some hella great matches and came up with the whole option C thing, and they properly built that up to him beating Rude, and it was a moment, and the title reign was what it was. I think ultimately he kind of got wrapped up in the aces and ace thing, which ultimately took over a lot of stuff. But that's how you build somebody up and
Yeah,
make it
and
matter.
with the Aries thing, that was kind of two factors colliding. There was the fact that they were building up to Rude and Storm at Bound for Glory, but Storm and Rude wasn't clicking as the
Yeah,
big feud. But then here's Aries, who's cleaning out the X Division and simultaneously getting way more over than anyone thought he would be. And then all of a sudden they're like, let's now pivot and start building to the idea of Aries going over on Rude. And they spent 6 or 7 weeks building up to it. It worked. That was a huge reaction. But they can't do that anymore. Not so much TNA, I mean WWE in general. The idea of earning that reaction. Speaking of earning reactions, NXT earned one for me tonight. I haven't even watched it yet. So
oh,
first and foremost, if you want to commit wrestling blasphemy, you begrudge the Steiners. Doesn't matter what you did. You committed blasphemy. Just Marcus, we saw the name. It's Brickabreaker, or whatever it is. Ooh. I like the fact because I understand he's eventually going to get fired in the next 2 to 3 months, 2 to 3 years. And when he goes to his next job, he'll be able to keep his name Bronson Steiner. Dope. But his name is Brickabreaker. Brickabreaker.
Braun Breaker with two Ks.
Are you sure it's not 3 Ks knowing this company?
Chad. They just started 2.0 tonight. Give them time.
Marcus, they just named another guy, another black guy, the W champion. They're not racist. See, that means they're not racist. Oh, you're adorable, people. You are adorbs. So, what are we thinking about this name?
I mean, look. I mean, if nothing else, he definitely lives up to it. I mean, the dude is a savage. He's stacked. He's packed.
Stacked and packed. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, and I mean, even though he had is those colors, because you've seen it now. Him anyway. Is that singlet? Are those colors affiliated with his dad, or did they make him wear the colors of the brand?
No, his father was very well. Actually, both his father and uncle were usually wore tie-dyed colors or like color-esque designs like he does. So,
Gotcha.
like, while I can't point to one specific instance where that's like what his father exactly wore, his father wore very similar attire. Like, if you look up his run in WWE, especially like with like WrestleMania 9, I think you would see that like different patterns, but like very much in touch with what his father was known for.
Gotcha. So that was yeah, man. But he is damn impressive, and he finished with that. Only other person I've seen do that was your boy Goldberg, when you press slam him, drop him on the shoulder, and then power slam him to the mat.
Oh yeah, I love that. That was great.
Which is a perfect power move. Yeah, I'm impressed. Like I said, he looks like this mix of Jason Jordan with like a he almost has like EC3's facial structure the way he is now. Obviously with a far better narrative already, but he's gonna be a problem. But he does remind me of he actually reminds me of a very lethal combat. Like if what American Alpha fused.
I was just about to say if Gable and Jason Jordan fused, that would be Bronson Brickabreaker. Like that was dead on what I was thinking about. Like the entire time you were talking, like the minute you brought up Jason Jordan, because he kind of does have the same kind of like facial outline of Jordan, but as soon as you brought it up, I was like, dude, that's what Jason Jordan and Chad Gable would look like if they fused. 100%. Good call. So, other things that happened on NXT tonight included a new world champion, tomato sauce champion guy. I know he's Italian. I'm supposed to be able to pronounce Italian names. I can say Tommaso Ciampa. I just don't want to because it's a stupid fucking name. So dumb. If I was named Tommaso Ciampa in real life, I'd be like, this is so dumb. I wouldn't even hold back. I'd be like, why do you name me this? This is dumb. Marcus, he's champion once again, and I'm just sitting here going, what's the point? Why is LA Knight in this company? Why do you refuse to use him? He was in a feud with 70-year-old Ted DiBiase recently. Like, what are you doing, company? Like, what is the point of you?
Yeah, man, look, you know, not gonna say that the $1 million bill didn't look good around his waist, and it perfectly lines up with his personality. Because Eli Drake, LA Knight is just he's never gonna be a face. It's not gonna work. He's a born heel. But yeah, we know what he can do. We know what he probably should be doing. But narrative dictates otherwise. And when you kick off the show with him losing, that doesn't bode well.
To a rookie who has never, ever had a wrestling match in front of a live audience. This time last year, Bronson Steiner was on the Baltimore Ravens practice squad. So, like, what are you doing, WWE?
Yeah, it's a one of them times, man. But I think ultimately with that situation, with the NXT Championship, I just ultimately feel bad for Joe. It seems like his whole WWE career has just kind of been riddled with injuries that have timed him out of key situations. That would have seen him, live up to the potential that he had when they first brought him in. And it sucks because we know the caliber of talent that he is. Maybe not like we seen him in his prime in TNA, but he certainly is one of their better talkers and has a presence, which you can't really say about a lot of these guys, no matter how in shape they are. Joe has a natural presence and air about himself that you really can't buy. And the fact that, he had his run in NXT, got to the main roster, kind of, was back and forth, picked up some momentum for some reason, ended up on commentary, came off of commentary, and then, went back to NXT with a potential hope of leading this new future NXT, this, new wave of NXT, and now that's kind of been derailed yet again. It sucks because we've seen the company bail out on so many guys before when stuff like that has happened, and not even multiple times. Like the company completely bailed on Dolph when he got that concussion when he got that world title, and that wasn't even his fault. I think Swagger kicked him in the head. So
Swagger.
yeah, so and he never really got a shot to go back and try with that world title. So yeah, I just ultimately think it sucks for Joe. Can't be mad at Ciampa because I think he's the NXT guy until he retires because I don't him going to the main roster. I just think that's a no go. Some people just can't really. They're not gonna thrive on the main roster at all. That's why Ember Moon's back there. Why Ciampa didn't leave. We're gonna talk about the plans for Mr. Bebe later. But yeah, I just feel like it sucks for Joe because even with him slowed down, I'll just always be a fan of Joe. So
I think Joe's biggest problem, and this may cause me some criticisms, is that he doesn't take it seriously anymore with regards to preparation. One of the biggest things that we learn as athletes, because I was a long-time athlete, borderline still am, I'm amazing at checkers. Just, I'm going to be on ESPN one day playing checkers. Because you know me. And the one thing that I always remember is like preparation. And it doesn't just start with stretching. It's conditioning, it's proper eating, it's proper dieting. We talk about that a lot because pro wrestlers are supposed to be professional athletes. And I'm always boggled when people go, well, wrestling, it's not real, so you don't need to be in great shape. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Otherwise, you get matches like Big Show versus fucking Cutie Marshall or whatever his name is. Just boring slogs of stepping around people. You have to be an athlete. You have to be in shape. And shape is a different term for other people. But for the most part, if you're gassed after 5 minutes, you're not in shape. And Joe hasn't been in shape since 2014. So it's always one of those things like when I see Joe, I'm like, he's doing it to himself at this point. The lack of conditioning, the lack of proper dieting, the lack of anything that says that he's willing to get his weight under control is the reason why he keeps getting injured. He's carrying too much weight. And I know this is like, oh, you're body shaming. No. It's medically proven that the human body can only sustain so much weight across so much time before it breaks down. Samoa Joe's knees are shot to shit. Would anyone like to take a guess if it's because he's 80 pounds overweight? Go ahead, raise your hand. It's true. So that's part of the issue. I don't think it makes him less of a human being. I'm not going to sit here and be like about it because it's his life and he can do what he wants. But if he wants to get himself in shape and be able to start mitigating some of these injuries, the only way to do it is by, going, swimming, eating far more fruits and vegetables than you normally do. Dropping out the carbs and some of the fattier and less healthier foods and really getting it under control because otherwise he's going to be like Vader dead at 62. And I don't want that for Joe. I don't want that for anyone. So I really hope Joe gets his shit together. Now, I don't know what's injured this time. It could be a head thing. If that's the case, then I don't think he's ever coming back to the WWE because, at a certain point, if you're the company, you're like, how many more head injuries can we have you sustain before we're like, nah, dog. So I don't know. Do you know? Like, did you read anything about what Joe may have been plagued with or suffering from?
No, I don't think there was any specification towards it, and that obviously that might very well be on purpose. Uh, but like you said, it could be multiple things. One big serious thing, but who knows? Freak accidents end up happening in the ring oftentimes off of something simple. We saw what happened with
Well, it's the first
and
time, like the first time he got hurt. Well, I shouldn't say the
yeah,
first time, but the big injury that he had just a couple years ago was from a commercial. Like he was. Remember that "Must Be Monday" commercial? Must be
oh
Monday.
yeah,
And like Lashley was like spearing him through the barricade or something like that. That's how he hurt his head. Just by doing a fucking commercial on a green screen. Somebody gets hurt doing a commercial. Must be Monday. Marcus, I would like to ask if you were a fan of NXT at any point prior to tonight.
yeah, absolutely. I think I came in at NXT, started watching consistently back with I feel like it's 2014, during that time where Tyson Kidd that went back there and was really bubbling up and catching some momentum. During that time, I think when Neville was the champion and he was going from face to heel because it was getting to the point where he was starting to do anything to keep that championship. Um, but yeah, I think that was on a real good time because you saw so many names. You had the Breezes, like I said, Neville, Sami Zayn, Tyson Kidd. Um, obviously you had the women, bubbling up the four horsewomen or whatnot, and a lot of other names. When it really felt like a developmental brand, you got to see those names kind of be built up. So, and then from there, then when it really got hot and they started mixing stuff up. But yeah, I think that was a sweet time to come in because I got the grasp, specifically when it was still 1 hour too. I think that was the golden sweet spot for the show, obviously. So yeah, that's definitely when I came in and started to see it before it became this whole thing. So,
I think the best way to kind of fix Raw, and I know this is kind of off topic, but we'll spin around, would have been when 205 Live was still a thing. You would have had 205 Live, then the women's division, then the Raw division. You know, separated across 3 hours, make each hour its own show, which will allow you to then jump in and out if you don't want to watch. Like if you don't want to watch whoever the fuck Noam Dar was facing that week, then don't watch the 8 o'clock hour. If you don't want to watch the women, then don't watch the 9 o'clock hour. If you don't want to watch, Seth Rollins, don't watch the 10 o'clock hour. So I wouldn't have watched any of it still, but it would have been at least the idea of going back to that 1 hour NXT increment where fans can see just a little bit of what they were looking for in a more concentrated, amount of time. As for NXT, I've never been a fan of it, but I do think it has kind of gone back to that developmental brand idea. Because like Bronson Steiner debuted, Parker Barda, he's about to, and now his name is just Harlan. Apparently, Gunner was too violent. Not real. Not that that's not really the case. I was just being a dip. But like, yeah, he's like, I'm Gunner Harlan, and I'm like, that's dumb. And then he's like, no, I'm just Harlan. I'm like, that's even dumber. Stop. So we are where we are at the moment. All right, Marcus. That was NXT. We're gonna move on. Johnny Gargano, Mr. NXT, his contract's expiring soon, and what's he gonna do? I, for one, could give two giant yucks about this dude. I think he is as bland as rye toast. I think he makes a immovable rock. Not even an immovable rock. He makes a regular pebble that you were to see in your garden or driveway, depending on on your setup. I think he makes a Pebble look interesting. I don't give a damn how good in the ring he is because everyone's that good now. And it hasn't been that impressive for like 15 years. Oh, he's good in the ring. Yeah, yes, everyone's good in the ring. You know who's not? No one. Because everyone upped their game. Even Jericho at 72 upped his game. Granted, he's still slow as shit, but he can't help that. Can help being a dipstick though. That's neither here nor there. Marcus, 1, do you care that Gargano might be a free agent? And 2, is there any place you want to see him go besides OA?
No, I 100% agree with everything you said. And again, anybody listening, we don't, these aren't personal, shots. We don't have anything against these guys. They just, we say it before, say it again, keep saying it. Guys like Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, they kind of all amount to the same guy for us. They do a lot of the same stuff. And, there's really no differentiation. That's not taken away from their work rate. Everybody gives 110%. Those guys have had a lot of great moments, specifically in NXT. I think that brand kind of put itself on their shoulders a lot of times, probably more so than it needed to at a lot of points. But they certainly outlasted guys, like Velveteen Dream, who probably should have got shot to the stratosphere. But yeah, I don't really care. Gargano is, like you said, because so many different people are special, and they kind of do everything now. It doesn't come off as unique, and him, and even his fellow shorties ourselves, him being his height, it don't help. So
It's one of those things where it's not so much the height, though that does play a factor because everyone is that height, and it kind of is like, all right, so what's your originality then? But it's the fact that he's boring. I think Danhausen's the same height. I love Danhausen. Oh, I love me some Danhausen. Love that Danhausen. But with Danhausen, you're getting a character. You're getting someone who is unique to himself.
yeah,
And you don't get that with Gargano. You don't get that with Ciampa or Adam Cole. Like, they don't really have any defining characteristics other than, Gargano likes to cosplay and Ciampa has a beard and Adam Cole's his baby. None of these guys have ever had that promo. Like, never have had that promo. And the Undisputed Era was the biggest Four Horsemen cosplay I'd ever seen. They have nothing about them that I would say made them unique. Well, they brought back the War Games. Brought back, exactly. Didn't create. Didn't have a big promo. Didn't redefine the genre. They were just NXT's smaller, thinner Four Horsemen. Congrats. You existed. That's the best I could say about that entire stable. But, what do I know?
But on Gargano, real quick, do you see him departing from NXT? Like, because
Yes.
I feel like, oh wow.
One way or another, I think he's gone. Either his contract's up and they don't renew it, or he gets fed up with all the constant pitter-patter, everyone else leaving the company, and he's like, you know what? I'm a bow out now. Kind of go out on my own terms.
Yeah.
But I think one way or another, he's heading to AEW, which I'm sure Brian Cage is going to love. Or at least Melissa Santos. We told you this would happen. Like, listen to us. We are smart about, like, 9 things. And wrestling happens to be one of the 9. We knew this was going to happen. We told you. We told you. There's going to be an overabundance of talent in AEW, and eventually people are going to get pushed aside, and then people are going to get upset, and feelings are going to get hurt, and they're going to be like, and we're going to be like, well, why are you going? We told you this would happen. So,
It's weird because it first you would think somebody like Cage with all his
caginess.
Abilities that comes along with him. You would think instantly he would become a big fish in a small pond, but because of the expansion of the brand and all the names that they've added, he comes off like a small fish in a big pond now.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can kind of swap out a coat of paint, if you will, and just be like, well, they got Powerhouse Hobbs.
Who's probably a third of the price. And if you don't think, budget cuts will eventually come to AEW, they come to everyone. You know, if you're looking for a big muscle bound dude, you're gonna pay the $400K a year for Brian Cage if that's what he makes. I don't know, or the $100K that you're paying to Powerhouse Hobbs. You're always going to go with the more affordable option. And Hobbs, like there's so many guys on that roster that could do for an excursion. And listen, if that's what AEW ends up doing, sending guys out on an excursion, like 3 guys to Ring of Honor, 2 guys to Impact, 3 guys to New Japan, they might be able to scuttlebutt this issue of being over encumbered. But that's the only way I see them doing it. So we will see.
The only guys AEW sends to Impact are guys 2 guys who actually is under contract with Impact.
Yeah, we're gonna send Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows to Impact. They already have contracts with us. Yeah, that's right. Speaking of all right, Bobby Fish has some people that still like him, some people who don't. I'm of the never gave a shit. So, here we are. What I will say is Bobby Fish is someone that people might like. So I understand that there's this desire to keep seeing him. So I'm not completely upset that he's going to MLW. It seems to be where all the fighter guys go. Davey Richards, he's going there now. Bobby Fish is going there. So I'm fine with it. But Marcus, we've talked before about Bobby Fish, and he seems to have his political leanings, which is fine. Everyone has them. But his are more of an anonymous sorts, apparently. And usually I ask you, if so-and-so goes to MLW, is that more than likely to make you start watching? Tonight, I'm going to ask you the same question, but inverse. If Bobby Fish shows up in MLW, are you going to not watch?
No. And I guess maybe in this particular instance, I'm kind of glad not to know, I guess, in depth about his particular political leanings, because some of these wrestlers can really disappoint you on the don't meet your hero side of the game.
Him and Drake Wirtz are friends. That's all I got to say.
Oh, for freak's sake.
Nope.
But yeah, I've always appreciated him as a talent. I obviously loved him with Red Dragon. And I appreciated him when he, was in the Ring of Honor doing this thing with the TV title and kind of trying to strike out on his own as a singles competitor. And he's definitely talented. Not a blow your mind or must watch by any stretch, but I do think he's a quality guy. He's also somebody though too that's been riddled in his career here and there with injuries. And I don't know how old he is. Maybe he's nearing 40 or at 40.
I think he's 41.
But yeah, that's value in the 44.
Both wrong.
Yeah, but yeah, I do. There's value in somebody like Fish, and he's always come off somebody who's competent and somebody you could depend on. So he's not going to detract me from MLW. And like you said, that is a brand now where it's becoming for guys that seem more fighter oriented, and he has more like a ground and pound technical base. I think his finisher is a heel hook, if I'm not mistaken. So is why he works so well with O'Reilly. But yeah, I think that's a good addition. I mean, they got guys like Richards, now him, and so many others. Like that's just one of those things. I think a lot of people just kind of overlook MLW. They really do be getting some quality talent. Rush has passed through there. We talked about Fatu, who's the staple in there, and a lot of other guys.
Hammerstone,
and these are legit guys. Just because they're not on the big company radar, these are legit, stars in the making. So.
Yep, Hammerstone's a big old star boy. Speaking of big old star boy, we're going tiny here. Leo Rush. Apparently, Tony Khan wants to bring back the Rushter for AEW, or already has and wants to work with him again. I forget the exact story. But Marcus, are you at all surprised that Leo Rush is once again unretired from wrestling, and it seems to be permanent this time until his next retirement?
No, man. We talk about this, man. It's hard to take most people serious in wrestling when they talk about retirement, unless it's a serious injury, like what initially sidelined Brian and Edge and other guys. But Yeah, it's hard to let go of it, man. It's a certain, obviously we can't relate because we haven't done it, but it's a certain rush that you would imagine these guys get that they hit wrestlers talk about all the time. They just can't duplicate, and everybody likes doing what they're good at. And he's great at wrestling, so it's been one of his first loves. How he's provided for his family for so long, and yeah, it's just like I said. I would imagine it's a hard thing to let go of. Hopefully, he can somebody else that can avoid injury. But Rush is one of those guys you love to see because he really is that good at what he does. I just hope we don't continue to get these retirement things back and forth because I still think he stays healthy. He got a lot more road to pave. So
And he's young. He's not even 30 yet. So, here's hoping. Because I'd like to see more of Rush. I'd like to see Rush in Impact. He kind of has that amazing red vibe. So,
yeah, man.
not a fan of his tattoos. Think they're kind of weird. Speaking of weird, let's talk about weird hairlines. We're talking about Adam Cole, baby. So, Marcus, stop me if you heard this one before, but little tiny guy was going to be giving big black guy as a client. Apparently, the WWE liked the idea of Leo Rush and Bobby Lashley together so much that they thought about redoing it with Adam Cole and Keith Lee. I just want to know if at all that would have been an idea that you would have liked to have seen, because I'm talking not about a tag team, not a tag team, but as a manager, which I think is hilarious because I think Cole can talk about as well his girlfriend, and I don't give Britt Baker much credit for her promo skills. So thoughts on Cole as a manager for Keith Lee as a
It's
heel?
just bad. Yeah, I mean, look, Cole is straight up and down here. That was probably the best part of his um, AEW debut was reminding, as somebody who's watched him since Ring of Honor, just reminding him like this guy is not a face at all. He's another guy that's a born heel. He has a heel demeanor. He has a face that you would want to punch, and that works for him. And I think the only time to me, he's still in the history of the Bullet Club. He is the worst pick that
And
the
that's with
Bullet
Marty
Club ever.
Skrull on the table.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, it's just interesting to me. I almost got to set Cole aside and be like, it's just baffling to me how you can't simply book logically somebody like Keith Lee. Most, like 85% of the work is done for you,
Mm-hmm.
he needs a manager. Like you were properly booking him in NXT to the point where he had the North American and NXT titles at the same time. What are you doing?
It would be one thing, like with Vader, how he was paired with Harley Race to start. If you were to pair Keith Lee with Kevin Nash or Sting or Kurt Angle, okay. But Adam Cole, who's younger, has the same amount of time in the industry and isn't really known for being a great promo guy, like what's the point?
And he doesn't work. He was a mouthpiece for the Undisputed, but he was a mouthpiece in the way that Triple H was for Evolution, where he made sure he was the focal point. And certainly the champion in that whole vibe. But with Keith Lee, what's even more frustrating to watch is when he first came in there, because obviously he came off the Indies with a lot of fanfare and rightfully so. But he was not out of the gate hot fire when he came into NXT. I don't
Mm-mm.
know how close he was to getting fired, but he was really not clicking. And maybe he was with other people, not with me. Like he was like, because you told me about him, and also I went back and watched some of his stuff. I'm like, okay, this guy's certainly is a problem. Like he's one of those different generation talents, but he wasn't clicking in NXT for whatever final reason. I don't know if it was attitude or the theme song or demeanor, whatever. It just wasn't clicking. And then to watch him find himself and to get over big and to reach that precipice, if you will, that's hard to do because a lot of those guys never do, and they either get fired or they are down there for damn near a decade with no possible end in sight in terms of moving up or even getting an NXT championship. So for him to get out of that rut and get, like I said, not only the North American title but the NXT title, and then you transition him to the main roster, and then you drop the ball like you're a newborn. It's ridiculous.
It's not good. It's not good. All right, next topic. Braun Strowman might be heading to Impact. Now, I don't know how this is going to read. They already got two big, tall dudes that don't do much. I shouldn't say don't do much, but that they're already pretty much occupied with Big Cass XL and Moose. I don't see the value in Strowman as an asset other than name value. But even then, he's not going by Braun Strowman, so what value does he really have? What is he now, Titan? Oh, such a good name. What are we thinking here? We thinking big old Brown, paper towel man. We think he can make an impact in Impact? No pun intended.
This is going to be extremely blasphemous for me to say. I'm going to read this out. I'd rather D'Lo have to take a break, and we need to get Matthews back on commentary for a month before I care to see Braun Strowman in Impact.
So this is the Sophie's Choice of our podcast. Listen to Josh Matthews again, or watch Braun Strowman wrestle. I'm gonna take Braun Strowman wrestling because it ends quicker. I'm playing the logic here. I can endure anything if I know how long I have to endure it for. And I know I'll only have to endure Braun for 10 minutes.
I don't know, man. Because did he shave that beard? Did I see that somewhere? Or he shaved the beard or something?
I don't know if he shaved it. He shaved his head, I know that. And he may have trimmed his beard, but I don't think he shaved it. But he may have. Okay. I don't follow him on social media, so I don't know.
Even though I've watched him through his whole WWE career, I still go with the audio devil that I know. Because at this point I also can't trust Impact. Like, what if they push him to the front of the line?
They will. They will. They did it with Eric Young. You know, they did it with Michael Elgin. They will. You know it. I mean, you know it. Speaking of Bound for Glory is coming up October 23rd. They're going to be live on pay-per-view on October 23rd at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Why 10 o'clock and not 8 like normal? Well, because AEW is running a show that weekend. And they're going to be preemptive for some reason. Maybe they think if people watch the AEW show, they'll be more likely to tune in for the Impact show. Now, that might work. I don't know if the AEW show is live, though. So you may be handcuffed with how you present your show and what talent you have available. Marcus, on face value, do you like Impact moving to 10 p.m. for Bound for Glory, their biggest show of the year? And then, separately, are you all right with them doing it if it means that AEW spends 2 hours promoting it? So just on its own, do you like the 10 p.m. time shift on its own?
No, because I prefer to get in and then get out. Even as much as I love Impact, I don't want to be. I mean, we stay up late anyway, but I would prefer to stay up late doing something else. Like, start at your normal time. I get that it's supposed to be this big international thing, but I would prefer if they just started at their regularly scheduled pay-per-view time.
Now, with the idea of constant promotion on a 1.25 million viewed TV show, give or take, how are you feeling about the idea now?
I'm in the middle because I can't trust AEW to give them the upper hand on anything.
That's true.
They're not even greasing the wheels in terms of an actual talent exchange. And the only reason why they were is because the guy that's over the company in Impact has a storyline with their main champion. Other than that, we're not seeing guys go back and forth. We getting more New Japan guys than we are AEW.
Like
And one of their
Hikuleo.
exactly, and one of their guys is our world champion again. So it's like another one of their guys is our world champion. So it's like this whole one sided, you know, thing. I can't trust it. I mean, I'm sure they'll show something on the show, but it's like this has been very, you know, I feel like non-reciprocal. This is some, this one of those things where
It's a one-sided relationship, that's for sure. You're not wrong.
yeah, if we're having sex, Impact's not coming.
Yeah, Impact's gonna be like, wait, we're done, but I'm not, and she goes, yeah, but I am.
Exactly.
Speaking of yeah, but I am. Knockout Knockdown coming back Saturday, October 9th, presumably on Impact Plus. No matches have been announced yet. Shockingly, we're about 3.5 weeks away. This kind of feels like not a retaliation or a response of some sort, but more like a trend. There we go. From what the NWA did with the Empower events. It'll be interesting to see if that's the case here. I think Gail, Kim, and Mickey James have alluded to possibly doing something further on in the future like this. So that could be what this is. How do we feel, Marcus, or especially how do you feel, about an all-women's Impact Plus event, which I have not seen since they were doing stuff with Shine, and Tessa Blanchard was taking on Mercedes Martinez in the main event.
I'll never complain about that. That was a great match. Even no matter how we think about Tessa, that was a great match. Shout out to Mercedes Martinez. Hopefully, we get to see her on Impact.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe on the show, perhaps. You never know. But in terms of this, I'll never complain about seeing the knockouts. They're a staple. They're great. Love the women. But honestly, on the petty sides, they need to do this show just so we could get a quality all women show with decent commentary.
That is true. That is true. I think it might be interesting, especially if they bring back Madison. Maybe do some commentary with Madison. Not Velvet though. Never Velvet. Never Velvet.
Would you if she needed a partner, would you bring back Jazz to slide in there?
Well, like here's the thing. I've never heard Jazz do commentary before, outside of like a guest role.
Yeah.
So like I'm hesitant to ever use wrestlers who have not established themselves because you never know how it's gonna go.
Yeah.
Beth Phoenix works great. Velvet Sky does not. So I think if I were to want to use Jazz, I would find another way to use her on the show. I would definitely find a way to use her though, because I think having Jazz on the show would be a good idea. But commentary, it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would have to have her do like a tryout. I think because like you're sitting there for 3 hours, and it's hard enough to come up with stuff as is to talk about. Now you're forced to talk about wrestlers you may know, may not know, or may have to adjust on the fly about. So it's definitely not an easy thing. But I would consider it. But I would also have another rule in mind for it. Probably like as like a host or like as part of like a championship committee of sorts or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's probably how I would end up using Jazz. Speaking of using people, PCO is not going to be used by Ring of Honor for much longer. December is his out date, and he is going to be done, gone, and out of there. He's 53, 54 years old. And frankly, I don't think he's all that immobile for a guy his size with the amount of years and body damage that he's taken. It does not sound like he's retiring. It sounds like he's going to be looking at his options. And knowing who he is, how he is, and what he can do, I hope Impact is one of those options. Because I think if you give him a better costume, better attire, I think you could really do something with this PCO Frankenstein gimmick. Marcus, would you like to see PCO and Impact or anywhere else for that matter?
Yeah, it wouldn't turn me off. I mean, I think I kind of missed his whole world title reign in Ring of Honor. But like I said, got back on the Ring of Honor brand through the Pure tournament. But that being said, I'm highly impressed by some of the stuff that I did see, specifically him doing some of that stuff at his age. Um, he could definitely teach a certain daughter of a four horseman how to do a damn moonsault. But um,
I don't think he did a moonsault until he was like 48 either.
which is even funnier.
Yup.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I like I said, I wouldn't be turned off seeing him in Impact. I think he could do some really interesting stuff. But yeah, I mean, look, he got the world title and then Ring of Honor and did some other stuff, and maybe it's just time for him to move on. Obviously, I doubt they go run that back, specifically with the guys they seem to be going with now. And looking at that roster and that lineup of champions, that whole thing is just diverse. So, um, like I said, between the last however many years between Daniels, you had Roosh, PCO, some other people like they don't discriminate in terms of age or just
Race,
guys.
ethnicity.
Yeah, ethnicity. So that's good. But I just think he's probably like, look, I've kind of done all I can here. And who was he teaming with before he was world champion? Uh,
He did some stuff with Danhausen for a while, but he was also in a tag team with um, Brody King, I think his name is.
yeah, Brody King. He's bossed up right. Yeah, Brody King's the big guy that's bossed up right now. That's going back and forth with your guy Shane Douglas and the Shane Douglas promotion.
Shane Taylor.
Taylor, that's Shane Douglas. Jesus, no.
Shane
Um,
Douglas is a great promo guy, but at 58 years old, I hope Shane Douglas isn't tussling it around.
yeah, Shane Taylor Promotions. And it's been great seeing him coming to his own. But yeah, man, if he could still, like it obviously said, for him to be able to do what he does at his age, when we usually see that level of longevity at the pace he still does that with like new like Japanese performers,
Mm-hmm.
it says, so like I said, kudos to him.
That kind of brings us to a topic of conversation that I think is relevant. We just saw a new Ring of Honor Pure Champion, Josh the Good Woods, capture the belt, and I was thinking about this because I don't know who the world champion in Ring of Honor is. I think it's Bandito,
Hmm.
and Bandito does nothing for me, and I doubt he does anything for anyone else. Um, then we had Roosh. He did nothing for me, and he didn't really do anything for anyone else. Even Cody Rhodes' run, I didn't think did anything for anyone. I see this as an opportunity to finally have a quote unquote Ring of Honor guy take over the reins and be the Ring of Honor guy with Josh Grisham. Wait, did I say Josh Grisham? God damn it. John Gresham. I think Gresham is the perfect guy to come in and be the world champion of Ring of Honor and really give them a guy that's the company and the promotion can utilize as like their guy. Like this is our guy. I think that's the way to go, and I think you set yourself up to have your best world champion in this company for some time since Jay Lethal's first title run. And I think if they do that, I think
Oh,
I think people will be happy with the world champion in Ring of Honor for the first time in quite some time.
and I'm so glad you said that because that's immediately when you said that he really doesn't do anything for me. Um, and all those guys are great performers, but sometimes characters just don't click with everybody, and a mask looks cool. That doesn't inherently ingratiate you to somebody either. Um, but like you, I haven't really felt anything in terms of like kinship or this feeling of being drawn in with somebody since, like you said, Lethal's first reign. Coming off of that great promo, which we continue to laud over to this day. I made you. I mean, I made this belt. That belt made you.
Mm-hmm.
Going against Briscoe. So, um, and not to knock any of the champions since, but that was really something. Talk about another person, another instance where somebody was built up brilliantly to a world championship, their first world championship. Um, but yeah, I mean, who I put Gresham against anybody,
Mm-hmm.
anybody. He's just one of those talents. Um, so I mean, I think that's the perfect idea, and I mean, when you look at guys like Gresham, Taylor, um, I think it's a long wishful thinking because I've always been a fan of Kenny King, but I think that's maybe wishful thinking at this point. But guys like Gresham and Taylor, those are guys that you look to build around. Those are your loyalists. Those are the guys that want a full plate of food
Mm-hmm.
because they always starving. Even when they they got a meal, they still starving. I think Gresham is definitely the guy you want to move towards next because he really put that pure concept and championship and held that waved that flag strong. I don't think you go back to somebody like Lethal as much as I dig Lethal. They did that first epic run, which is in the books, solidified, non-debatable. They got it back on them again. I don't, obviously during a different time, and it's hard to duplicate getting light in a bottle twice. But they did that. But I think it's time for some new blood, and I think, like you said, getting it on like a pure Ring of Honor guy, no pun intended, like a Gresham, I think is definitely the next move.
I think Josh Woods can also be kind of factored into that future era guy, but he
Yeah.
is far from being on Gresham's level at the moment.
Uh-huh.
He's more Gresham is more on that cusp of being the upper mid card to main event guy, while I think
Yeah.
Josh the Goods Woods needs a name change, a gimmick change, and is kind of meandering around the Booker T circa 1998 era, where he was just a TV title champion and that was all he was for that time period. That's what Woods is to me. He's that pure championship guy and nothing else for now. He does have kind of a anti personality where his bravado and haughty derision at times can be most of his personality, and that's good because he kind of comes off as someone who just doesn't give a giant flying cockadoodle doo. And while some
Yeah.
guys try to do the cool bad guy thing, Josh Woods isn't trying to be cool. He's being more just antagonistic, which is in itself a very generic, basic idea, but also very underutilized. Have you watched um, that soccer show on Apple TV yet? I forget what it's called.
No.
Well, there's a character on there who's just mean and angry, and he swears all the time, and that's basically what Josh Woods needs to be—just mean, angry, and swearing all the time. But not really swearing, but you know what I mean.
Wait a
What?
minute, you wanted to beat Silas Young, then turn it into him?
Essentially, yes. I want him to take Silas Young's gimmick and soul from him in a pure championship title match. Just after he beats him, be like, "Your soul is mine." I cannot do that as well as what was it, Kirigawa? What's his name? The guy who did Shang Shun in Mortal Kombat. I can't remember his real name. Mortal Kombat 1995.
Uncle Tsunami.
Hiroyuki. Kerry Hiroyuki. That's what
Uncle
it is.
Tsunami.
Hey, Kimo! The fact that Robin Chow wasn't Johnny Tsunami Jr. in Johnny Tsunami breaks my heart on a daily basis, and I cannot express to you the disappointment that I feel knowing that that movie was made without Robin Chow, who played Liu Kang in Mortal Kombat. I know he's like 28, 29, 30 in Mortal Kombat, so him playing a 12-year-old in Johnny Tsunami doesn't make any sense, but that's why it makes sense.
Like, come on, Pollo. Like, that all you got? Oh, sorry, wrong movie.
Oh, God, that would have been great. All right, Marcus, any final thoughts on this week's show?
Oh no, man. Cover most of it. Quick shout out, man. God bless Al Snow.
Yes.
What does everybody want? A hero. That's what they want. A real life hero. And that's what he is, man. Hearing about him saving the kid from a riptide. Not what, maybe a year and a half, if not 2 years after we lost Shad the way we did.
No, just like a year. Like Shad passed away last July.
Yeah, yeah. So thanks for the correction on that. But yeah, it did. Like I said, it doesn't feel like it's been that long at all. So coming off of that and then hearing about this and again, man, you just got to be careful out there. those waters, look one way and then they could turn next. I'm just, thankful that, because apparently there was a lifeguard there, but he was like they wasn't gonna make it, and he went out there and just exhausted himself getting that kid um, to the guards and then swimming back to show himself. And I think he made it with just in the nick of time, man. So you always want to, you see these bigger than life personalities. You hope they can, put some of that in real life, and that's what he did, man. So no matter how you might feel about Al Snow as a wrestling personality or whatever, he really came through and saved the day, and that's the news you want to see on Twitter. So
I've always low key enjoyed Al Snow, especially his run with Steve Blackman.
Steve Blackman, but what happened to Steve Blackman? He don't get talked about enough.
He's a bail bondsman, actually. Could you imagine
Makes
having
sense.
to skip out on him, and then he comes looking for you? Oof. Oh. That's
Those
that,
real Chuck Norris.
right? Right? To be fair to Chuck Norris is actually a world champion karate master.
Yeah.
And he was a very big competitor back in the 70s, but he's a schmuck of a human being nowadays.
Yeah. Like you said, a real karate master, not a master at the local Y. Oh,
Not like Uncle Rico. I don't know if you've ever seen
um,
Napoleon Dynamite, so I don't know if that reference tracks.
no, I've seen it. No, that
Okay.
tracks.
Okay.
But
Good.
yeah, so that's yeah. Like I said, you love to hear good news like that. So yeah, that's pretty much the only other thing that happened. Uh, that is of note. Thankfully, we didn't lose anybody. So
Yep, thankfully. So with all that being said, we're done for the night. We'll be back next week for more wrestling content. Marcus, I'm going to need you to tell me who you want for the WCW this week because I am fresh out of ideas for the moment. We can do that off the air. For
yeah,
Marcus Green, I'm Chad Porto. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at NERDCORP, on the website at Real Nerd Corp. Marcus can be found over on Twitter at ParadoxKid, ParadoxKid.
that's me.
You can also find him on his other podcast, The True Penny Show, at TruePennyShow. I'm on Twitter at Chad Nerdcorp, ChadNerdCorp, and on Instagram at Chad's Photo Hut. Be sure to follow us on the website once again at RealNerdCorp.com. And as always, remember to watch more wrestling. For Marcus, I'm Chad. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. And thanks for giving us a chance. Marcus, take us home.
Good night, me.